You're listening to Mr. Liverpool himself, Frank Carlyle, exclusively on Mersey Radio.
I'm awfully sorry there, Derek. Messages were coming through. And, anyway, good evening, Derek. So, all these wonderful Christmas songs, what can you tell us about them and, the build-up and obviously when they were first recorded, because what we've got one of the very first recordings of Jingle Bells from 1889 that you dug out, which is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be the first ever Christmas single. I mean, it was originally recorded by a guy called Will Lyle on the 30th of October 1889 on an Edison cylinder. I mean, it was written in 1857 and originally called One Horse Open Sleigh. But what's interesting, the guy that wrote it, James Pierpoint, we're talking about the first half of the 19th century, and the two guys, him and his dad, they fought on different sides in the Civil War.
Really?
His dad was an abolitionist minister. And they lived in the South. Yeah. And as things were all hotting up, as, war was becoming imminent, he closed his ministry in the South and moved north. And he fought, neither were in the infantry, I don't think. But the father fought on the side of the North. Yeah. And the guy that wrote that, James, fought on the side of the South. Wow. So, interesting background, I think, to Jingle Bells.
Yeah, absolutely, because, that Civil War was absolutely dreadful. Any civil war in any country, was dreadful for the people of that said country. And to have one, but it did, that particular war did split families. And it's like anything. You can go back, I'm sorry to digress, but you can go back to the miners' strike, where families were actually split over the strike itself. And absolutely. It's never been really, there are families who are still torn apart by it, unfortunately. But, getting back to that, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But what about this particular noddy older one? Because we started off with that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? It's one of the songs I don't like. He shouts it to me. I've never really been into Slade, and that's one of the least. If I had a jukebox and I'd seen all the Christmas songs, I wouldn't play that, unfortunately. So what's your take on that anyway?
Well, I quite like that. I mean, like you, I was never a big Slade fan, but I think that particular song it's a real classic Christmas song, and it's an interesting one. It's from 1973. He actually started writing it in about 1967 when he was in a band called the In-Betweens. That's what Slade were called. Noddy was the last one to join the In-Betweens. Okay. And that's what they were before they became Slade. And in 67 he wrote a song called Buy Me a Rocking Chair. Okay. And it was that was the basis of Merry Christmas, Everyone. And then he wrote that with Jim Lee, and they went through various permutations of lyrics and stuff, and that became his pension plan, basically.
Well, it is, because he's actually come out and said, hasn't he, that with this song, this particular song, every year he doesn't need to do anything, because the royalties, I forget, someone sent in last week how much he actually gets, and it's so many. I don't know whether it's £70,000 a year. Yeah,
I can believe it.
70 grand.
In 2009, PRS for Music, they're the people who monitor and control royalty payments. They reckon that 42% of the world's population had actually heard the song.
Really?
So it's no wonder he makes up serious money. And that was 2009. Yeah. And, I mean, since then, I would guess a lot more have heard it. But, I mean, we're talking about 1973, and the background to it was that he felt that the great British public needed cheering up a bit. I mean, inflation was around 10%.
Yeah, there was power strike, there was power cuts, wasn't there, as well?
Well, the 3-day week started that New Year's Day.
Yeah.
that Christmas. I mean, it was a horrendous time. Mortgage rates were 8.5% and rising. Income tax was 75% and rising.
It just shows we've had a couple of conflicting, how much he gets, actually. Michael Carter says £200,000 a year. And wow. John Calesi, who actually said last week, he gets $750K.
Wow.
So...
Just looking now, that's what I've just done, just Googled it. It comes up, he states on the Daily Mail that he gets £500,000.
So
followed very closely by the Pogues at 400,000.
Well, listen, I think that's amazing. That boys, that was Andy Gamble actually. But listen, when you said that like 70% of the people around the globe had listened to Merry Christmas, or whatever it's called anyway. What about the most popular song that's been? You said 70%. Is it the likes of Bing Crosby's White Christmas? Do you think the whole of the globe has listened to that one or knows of it?
Well, Bing Crosby's is certainly the biggest selling Christmas single, White Christmas. I mean, that came back. It was written by Irving Berlin in 1940. Yeah. And what's great about that, it was originally in a 1942 movie called Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
And what they did, they released the whole soundtrack on 6 singles. So White Christmas was originally released in the summer of in July of 1942, and by October it was number 1 on what was then the charts, and it stayed there for 11 weeks. Wow. I mean, it sold 50 million copies.
Wow!
It is the Guinness Book of Records puts it as the biggest selling single of all time.
Yeah,
I mean that is a big one.
I think one of the lads that wants to come in and say something there. Alan said Gilchrist.
Hi Derek, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm all right, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, okay. Fascinating stories here. I would like to ask you something about more contemporary sort of songs. We were talking just before the show started about Christmas pop songs that were covers of traditional carols.
Right.
And have you come across any of those in your research the last few days?
Not a lot, really. Well, not carols as such, but it depends how you define a carol, because.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, genuine carols were they'd sing them in churches. Things like in Dulce Jubilo,
Silent Night and the like.
No, yeah, that kind of thing. But I can't think of a cover for Silent Night. Can anyone think of anyone covering
Silent Night? Can I come in there about Silent Night? Actually,
yeah.
I'm not going to sing it, so use it all. Your ears arrested. Anyway, Silent Night was written by a priest in Austria, and it wasn't written as a carol. Did you know that? It was just written as a hymn. That's all it was written as, a hymn. And yet it's one of the most popular carols ever sung or sang. As
I think it's right up in the top 2 or 3, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Phil Spector does have that on he's got this legendary 1973 A Christmas Gift for You album, and they close with Silent Night on that particular album.
Didn't know that.
So he's got some, certainly Silent Night, which is, a carol by anybody's standards. But I'm not sure about whether too many covers of carols themselves, actual carols, have made the...
Well, Mike Oldfield did one, didn't he?
Tubular Bells?
No, they're not.
No.
In Dulce Jubilo, which is in Dulce Jubilo, I think was a traditional church-type song, and he definitely did it, I think, in the... It the 70s, Derek?
That was 70s or maybe the 70s, maybe the very early 80s.
Yeah.
But that was based in a German carol, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was the origin of that from about 18 something or other.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly one. I think there's the Murray's Boy Child one. Although I don't remember singing that at school.
No.
Yeah, no.
Carol.
I mean, Harry Belafonte had a hit with that, and somebody else.
Boney M.
Boney M. That was what I was thinking. They had a hit with it as well. Yeah. But it's interesting when you look through. I mean, in the 60s, it was very non-new, as it were, to actually record Christmas songs. I mean, the Beatles never, as the Beatles, recorded Christmas, a Christmas song. They had lots of hits at Christmas, but across the 60s, there weren't really any Christmas songs as such that were number one. They sort of came to popularity in the 70s and the 80s, which is interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, can I come in there? Because when the Beatles split up, Paul McCartney actually sang a couple of Christmas songs, didn't he?
He did,
yeah.
You know, the Pipes of Peace and
he did
things
2 or
like.
3, didn't he?
Yeah, no, the thing is, do you think they ever...
Christmas time.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think they ever, him and Lennon, you know, even Harrison for that matter, do you think that they... Yeah. You know, they had an argument. You know, Paul could have been saying, let's sing a Christmas song. You know,
I think, Frank, that they probably wouldn't have agreed on the kind of Christmas song. If you think about what they did do, you know, Lennon had Happy Christmas, War is Over, which is very different from McCartney's type of songs.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't have ever agreed.
Yeah, true enough.
Yeah.
I think it was just as well in the 60s, nobody was doing. It was very uncool, as it were, to do Christmas songs.
Cliff Richards did, though, didn't he? Cliff always came out with a Christmas song.
Yeah. I mean, they've all come out with Christmas stuff since, although George Harrison's Ding Dong is technically more of a New Year's Eve song.
Yeah.
But Ringo was the last one. He never actually put a Christmas single out, but he had an album he called I Want to Be Santa Claus. 1999, so it took him a while to decide to put some Christmas stuff out.
Well, listen,
he made enough money by then.
Well, listen, what I'm going to ask, you know, then get right back to you. I'm going to ask the lads. We're starting off with Andy Gamble, then I'm going to Mark, then I'm going to Ed, and finally to you. And it's only this, and I'll give you time, to be honest, Derek, as well, or anyone. Andy's up for it here. And it's only a question. Going right to Andy, what's your favourite Christmas song? I don't mean carol, I mean song. What's your favourite?
Favourite Christmas song would have to be one that we've just mentioned, the John Lennon, War is Over.
Okay.
Reason being, again, many years ago, my son was in a Christmas service at school, and we had all these young kids coming in singing that song, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was moving, to be honest with you. But I've always enjoyed it anyway. It's fantastic. It's a really good song.
Mark?
Can I have 4?
No, after the thing, we'll be going back. It's just a one-off this one.
I think I'd have to... I'll go against my favourite, but I'd have to go for Roy Wood and Wizards. I wish it could be Christmas every day.
Okay. Ed?
God, I was going to say, can I go for 4, but I won't now. There are just too many. I think I would agree with Andy first. That was my first choice. I think the Lennon one was my first choice.
Okay.
But then quite different. Weird one.
I've only asked you one.
Oh, all right.
We'll go back to them.
All right.
You know, what's he like? It's great. John Gillespie said last week, it's just an hat-off, doesn't it?
I'll get me coat.
I'll get me coat. This is great, this. Anyway, it is a nice little Christmas show. So what's yours, Derek, might I ask?
It's got to be the Pogues, I think. Fairy Tale in New York.
Okay. No, I'm coming back to that. Song. I'm actually coming back to that because we got Michael Carter. He's messaged in and he said he's actually heard Frank Sinatra singing Silent Night on a music channel. So, you know, they've all had a go, haven't they? Okay, getting back to you now again, you know, from Edison's. When are we going to play that? I'll tell you what, shall we have a little listen? This is the very first recording, and I think we'll be the only station and maybe the only show that will ever play this. I think so, anyway.
The best in 60s and 70s music, plus a little bit of history. Tune into Frank Carlyle every Monday at 8 p.m. here only on Mersey Radio.
That sounds like my local social club on a Saturday night.
I'm glad you never said Kappa's Cavern there on a Saturday
I'm glad
night.
He's not here because he'd be singing it on Saturday.
But anyway, Derek, you know, how you dug that up, that's the first time I've ever heard that, to be honest. It's the very first time, and obviously it'll be the first time that all the listeners have listened to it as well. And but it's the tune, it's everything, isn't it? Albeit that they've done some parts of it a little bit different today.
Absolutely. And that was recorded in 1898.
1898. Wow. That's 1889. It's got here.
Well, that particular version didn't survive. That was the first ever recording. But then it was recorded by the Edison Male Quartet. 9 years later, and that's the one that does survive. Again, it's on an Edison cylinder.
Yeah,
absolutely unbelievable. So it wouldn't be that easy to get hold of.
I wonder if saying that, I wonder if the likes of Queen Victoria. All right, it's in America, but I wonder if Queen Victoria ever got a recording of that because she was still on the throne at the time.
Absolutely. I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been quite novel to have had early gramophones and stuff.
Yeah.
Because the 78 didn't really come in till the sort of turn of the century. And it was the 20s before the recording industry sort of standardised on 78 as the speed. But the Edison, that's been around a long time, the cylinder.
Yeah. Do you know what, though? I always remember as a child, and what's written down here is Pinky and Perky. Pinky and Perky singing these Christmas songs was absolutely incredible. Does any of the around here remember them?
I can't remember. I remember them singing them, but I can't remember which ones they sang. It was probably one of those memories that you wanted to get rid of forever.
What about you, Mark?
I can't believe you like Pinky and Perky.
I never said I like Pinky and Perky. I'm just saying, remember that?
I was actually going to ask Frank what was your favourite Christmas song. But you've already.
I feel better liking Slade now.
No, but
I reckon if you called a duo Pinky and Perky now, you'd probably get arrested.
Yeah, you would. But the thing is, I always remember going up to TJ's one Christmas as a little kid, and they were in the window.
Yeah,
Pinky and Perky, and and obviously the Christmas songs was coming out because they had them stupid voices, didn't they? that sort of voice. As you do. So, can you tell us a little bit more about Pinky and Perky?
Well, they were like unbelievably popular around that sort of time, the sort of mid-late 50s, Two Little Pigs.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing them actually probably the same time because I remember going to a grotto when I was quite young, very young in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And they were there.
It must have been TJ's because they had. I think they had the franchise of Pinky and Perky.
Right.
Because that's where I seen them anyway. It's just absolutely mad, about all these things. But if I dare say, going back to John Lennon, for example, and the Xmas War is over. Obviously, the Vietnam War inspired Lennon to write it. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, he was very much in the whole anti-war movement in the early 70s. I mean, when he got into it very much in the late 60s. But it was interesting. That particular song was released first time round in America in 71, and it didn't even graze the charts at the time. And then for sort of copyright reasons, publishing reasons, it didn't get released in the UK until the following year. Oh. And even then, it only got to number 4, which is not too bad. But when you look at the war, I mean, it's fascinating. The peace talks themselves started after the Tet Offensive in 1968. They started in the May, and the peace accords weren't actually signed for another 5 years until January 73. And that was when the Americans pulled out, because the war continued for 2 more years after the Americans left, and it wasn't until 75 that Saigon fell, because Kissinger and I can't remember the Vietnamese guy now, they were both given the Peace Prize, Nobel Peace Prize, after the peace accords. Kissinger didn't actually go himself, he sent somebody else. But the North Vietnamese guy refused to accept it because he said at the time, I don't believe the war's over. Yeah. Because, their ambition, their objective was to unite North and South.
Which they have done now today, haven't they?
Oh, very much, yeah. Oh, it's a very interesting place. I've actually been to Vietnam a couple of times, to Saigon, and it's a really interesting place.
Yeah.
It's called Ho Chi Minh City now, of course.
Yeah, Ho Chi Minh City, yeah. Because what Saigon was, it symbolised the struggle, shall we say, of the Vietnam War, and that's Ho Chi Minh, was a great leader, as they said.
Oh, absolutely.
For Vietnam. So anyway, it's fascinating about these particular songs that being collated by you. And what about the Band-Aid one? And I know that again, these Christmas songs, obviously, they're inspired. We've just mentioned John Lennon and the tragic circumstances of Vietnam and the Vietnam War and the lads that had actually died there. But the inspiration, and again, it's death involved, was Band-Aids. Do they know it's Christmas time?
Yeah, that was in response to the famine in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And Bob Geldof and Midge Ure sort of got together. They wanted Trevor Horn to produce it, but he wasn't available. I think he wanted too long to do it because they turned the whole thing around in 24 hours. I mean, they did some work on the backing track earlier. But Midge Ure did the production of it. And just about, Bob Geldof actually used a song that he'd written and sort of abandoned earlier called It's My World as the basis for the song. But there were so many people at the time, from that sort of middle 80s, 1984, that got themselves involved with that. And it started off with one or two sort of solo lines. Paul Young, it's Christmas time, there's no need to be afraid.
Yeah.
And it leads up to Bono's brilliant line, brilliantly delivered line, well, tonight, thank God it's them instead of you.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, when they remade that more recently, they actually changed that line. I can't remember what to, but something much more innocuous, which I thought was really rather sad.
Yeah. See, it's one of my favourite songs, actually. One of my
it's great.
John Lennon's one is my best ever, Happy Christmas War is Over, because the feeling that you get, that's generated, to be honest, from those particular songs, you can feel the passion and the intensity, because the way Lennon sings it, and he's got all those kids in the background, as the chorus, absolutely fantastic. And that's the passion and the intensity of that particular song, because you can actually feel the passion that he wants this. He's sending out a message, Happy Xmas War's Over. And obviously, Bob Geldof and Midge Ure's, that particular song, you can feel the passion and everything else. And as you quite rightly said there about Bono saying, tonight, thank God it's them instead of you, because what he was pointing at, because it was pointing at us, we're all nice and we're going out and having mince pies and beer and everything else, and all tucked up in beds, and next morning presents and everything else, yet there's poor children, little children dying in the droves. So it's a very powerful song and a very powerful performance as well by all the artists.
Absolutely. But it was the fastest selling single at the time, and it remained that until Elton John's Candle in the Wind, 1997. So it sold over it sold sort of 3-4 million copies.
Yeah. And
spent 5 weeks at number one, raised £8 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite a success story at the time.
Yeah, of course. That
the artwork, was Peter Blake, the guy that designed Pepper, the Sergeant Pepper sleeve.
Yeah.
He did the artwork.
Well, the thing is, as well, when you mentioned Candle in the Wind, I thought that was the most dreadful of all songs. That's so patronising, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's looking to me. I was nodding, it was dreadful.
Yeah.
I thought the context as well in the Westminster Abbey. I thought the context of it being sung in there. I just thought it was, at the time I suppose it was popular, but I just looked back and I thought it was dreadful.
Yeah. I mean, I actually quite liked it. Just to go back on what you said, patronising in what way? How did you feel that?
When he was singing about Diana,
Right.
it was very patronising. And he was patronising not to the likes of Diana, but he was patronising to you and me and the rest of the country by bringing in. I thought it was dreadful.
I think Andy may not have got. I don't know whether you got it, but the thing I think was dreadful was him changing the words for Diana. I thought the original song was okay, because wasn't that about Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah.
I thought the original song was okay. I didn't like it that much, but it was okay, and the words were appropriate. I think changing the words for Diana for her funeral, I thought was crass. I thought.
Well, that's what I mean. It was patronising.
I thought it was an absolutely awful song. What really got me about it is I thought it was a cynical attempt to force royalty on people using the death of someone.
Yeah.
And everything about it just sat wrong with me.
Absolutely. And my sentiments entirely, Mark. Thank you for that. Because John Kilessie, he said, Frank, what about E17, Stay Another Day? It's not even an Xmas song, but always gets played at Christmas. Yep. Am I right there, boys?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of songs like that aren't technically Christmas songs that you just hear, every year, and it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's just got the big duffel coats on and it's snowing in the background. Do you assume it's a Christmas song?
Yeah, you're right. Snow songs will get in there. Yeah.
I'll tell you what we'll do before we finish at 9. Is there any chance to play just one of them? I'm getting terrible looks off Jason here, and it's just to put over what we actually said about the intensity and the passion. We'll play Lennon's "War Is Over." Is that all right? I know, that's what I'm saying. If we okay then. No, Jason said no. That's the end of that. Where's Pinky and Perky? We got Pinky and Perky there.
It's not snowy enough.
Got Pinky and Perky. Anyway, it's. Well, we played Jingle Bells, didn't we? At least, we played that. Can we play another one or any other one? No. Okay.
Did we get to find out what the Pinky and Perky song was called?
Yeah, can you find out, Derek? Is there any way that you can find out? Yeah, they're all Googling now. Everyone's got their phones out.
They recorded Jingle Bells.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
I mean, they recorded a load of stuff, but I mean, Jingle Bells, if you like that sort of thing, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Just a quick one on the Wizard. I forget, somebody said Wizard was their favourite. That was that lost out to Slade, because Slade made number 1 that year. Wizard only got to number 4. Yeah. And one of the producers, they were changing record labels and ended up getting released on both Harvest and another label, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
But what's great about that, it was actually recorded in the August, a very hot summer's day, and apparently what they did, they decorated the office, the recording studio where they were recording it. They sort of went out and got some fans in, turned the aircon as it was down to Arctic, and they played in overcoats to get into the Christmas spirit, which I thought was lovely.
Who was this?
That was Wizard.
Oh, Wizards, yeah.
It was Wizard.
Yeah, because it's and even Roy Wood, the royalties he gets from that, he's in the same brackets as Noddy Older.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely incredible. Yeah, there's something for you, Derek. And I read this years ago, when Elvis was alive, actually. Yep. And I'm sure Elvis, if I'm right or wrong, Elvis asked Roy Wood to write him some songs because he thought he was absolutely wonderful. Am I right or am I wrong, or have you heard anything like that?
I haven't actually heard that, but I wouldn't be at all surprised. I mean, Roy Wood is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, when he formed DLO, what he wanted to do, he wanted to pick up where the Beatles left off with Sgt. Pepper.
Really?
That was his whole sort of, that was his whole point of ELO.
Yeah.
But what's great about that, their first album in America is called No Answer, because when there was a transatlantic record call about the title of the album, and the other side, the secretary who got it, said to the producer or whoever that there was no answer from a telephone call. And the guy who was looking to get the title thought she meant the title is no answer, but she simply meant there was no answer on the telephone call. But the album ended up being called No Answer.
Isn't that unbelievable? That's incredible. But there's loads of things like that, isn't there? You know, where there's been mistakes and, you know, they've left. It's like the Beatles as well, where it goes, isn't it? You know, because the amplifier was on and they left it. I don't know who left it in. I don't know whether it was John Lennon said or Paul McCartney said leave it in, or George Martin.
Well, I thought of that. I think that'll be a George Martin thing.
So who'd you say left it in, Derek?
I'd have thought it was probably Oldham, but George Martin would have been well up for doing that. I mean, it's amazing when you look back now, and you know, you've got this sort of middle-aged guy in a suit, and he was, I think, very much the power behind the throne there. I mean, he comes from a sort of jazz classical background, and I think his influence on the albums is massive, absolutely massive, in terms of what they were doing and how they were creating it. Because he was very clever as well, very adept, I think, in the studio.
Right. Listen, Derek. What I'm going to ask our lads in the studio here, I've asked them to write out the top 5 Christmas songs. Okay, so I'm going to start with Mark. I hope you don't mind this. So he's going to tell you his 5 favourite Christmas songs.
Well, I think there'll be a few you'll agree with. I've got Fairy Tale of New York, the Pogues. Merry Christmas, Slade, I know you won't like it. I've got White Christmas, Bing Crosby. So This Is Christmas, War Is Over, John and Yoko, and I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day.
Okay.
Well,
Ed.
I've got to say, 3 of those are in my list. I got White Christmas, Fairy Tale in New York, kind of squeezes in there. Lennon for sure, I said that before. I think off the wall one, Stop the Cavalry, Jonah Louie.
Jonah Louie, yeah.
And that was the 5th place was a bit torn. Driving Home for Christmas, I thought, was just a nice song. But, you know, I wouldn't buy it, but it's a nice song.
Okay.
Yeah. He released that on a couple of B-sides.
Hang on,
Derek.
Derek, hang on a minute. I'm going to ask Andy here. Andy's gagging here. He's chomping at the bit. Then I'm going to ask you as well, by the way, Derek. Right. You're not getting away with it. So yeah, there's Andy.
So my top 5 will be the one that I mentioned before, War Is Over, again with Ed and Mark, the Pogues. But a great song that no one ever hears of, really. Elvis, Blue Christmas.
I was Blue Christmas.
I put that in because I knew you were going to do that. Paul McCartney, A Wonderful Christmas Time.
Oh yeah,
it's another good one. Yeah. And then one of the most favourite ones, it's not Christmas unless you hear it on the radio, is Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You. Ed's favourite song, and just another one to throw in, which Ed will probably have another fit over, Shakin' Stevens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful Christmas Time.
So, isn't that wonderful? You know, these wonderful songs. So, what's your top 5 anyway, Derek?
Difficult. Well, I would definitely have the Pogues in there. But I'd also have read just about anything off the Phil Spector Christmas album, 63 Christmas album. I just think that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
John Lennon, War Is Over. And I also love Dora Bryan's All I Want for Christmas Is a Beetle. I think that is a great song.
Well, I remember that as well, but that, you know, that's just gone right back on the burner. And what else? You've got a last one?
It could be... Can I have a joint number 5?
Yeah, go on.
Because I love Greg Lake's I Believe in Father Christmas.
Yeah.
And I actually love Bruce Springsteen. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I think that's a great version of it.
Yeah. What about, I tell you what, Ed's just wrote this out. Brenda Lee's Rocking Around the Christmas Tree.
Well, that would have been my next one, actually.
Really?
Yeah, and that's another interesting one because she released it a couple of times in America to no success, and then she broke through with Sweet Nothings, and she released it for the third time the following Christmas, and it was a hit there, and then it was still another couple of years before it was a hit in the UK. But that would have been, if we've been going on to talk about any others that are great, I think that's a fabulous Christmas song. I really do.
Is that a 60s song?
Yeah,
that was one of those rare ones that broke the stigma in the 60s, didn't it, really?
That's right. I mean, she recorded it in 1958, and she released it for the first time in America in 58 and again in 59. It just sank without trace because she didn't have a first hit until the early 60s with Sweet Nothings. And it was after she released it, having become successful. But she'd actually recorded a few songs before 1958. I think she made her first TV appearance, I think, about 1956, 1957. Because the guy that wrote that was a guy called Johnny Marks, who wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
God, that was... Do you know what?
Cowboy had a hit with.
Do you know what, though? It's funny you saying that, because I always remember Bear Live singing Rudolph, and I thought that was fantastic. Bear Live singing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Rudolph.
I mean, that's one that lots of people... Bill Live's a great voice.
Yeah.
Good voice.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention, only, it just went absolutely brilliant, Rudolph, when you mentioned Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yeah. So, I'm going to ask now the lads again, because I gave them a little bit of homework. I'm going to ask, starting with Ed, and he does go on a bit, but this is right off the cuff. Right there, and he's only going to mention the 5, okay? And Mark, and then the wonderful Andy. Anyway, what it is name your 5 top Christmas carols.
I thought that's what we just did.
No, they're Christmas songs.
Oh, all right. Well, I got the one before. In Dulce Jubilo, I think, is kind of in my top 5 because I do like the tune.
Right.
God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, Come All Ye Faithful.
Well, okay.
I was going to throw Silent Night in there, but I thought I'd leave that for someone else because I'm not that keen on it, even though it's a very popular one. Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Brilliant. What a tune.
Yeah.
What a tune. Is that 5 or 4?
Well, go on to name another one then, because...
Three Kings. Three Kings.
Mark?
Well... Believe it or not, I was never great at carols, and I can't say these are my best ones, but these are the ones I actually had to learn in order to play football when I was at school.
As you do.
If you didn't sing it, you ain't going to play, you ain't going to get picked, so I did actually learn them. I've got Silent Night, Hark the Herald Angels, Ding Dong Merrily on High. I don't sing these, by the way. Little Town of Bethlehem, and I've got that Christmas Day in the Morning.
Brilliant. Okay, Andy.
If I could answer that, Frank, and then just finish with a question as well, if I may.
Yeah.
Some of them have already been mentioned, as usual. Ed always mentions my ones. But Joy to the World, Hark, as we just mentioned, Little Donkey. I remember doing that one in nursery.
Yeah.
And the first
song, innit?
and the first Noel. So they were only 4. But just very quickly, if I may ask the question, Frank, is we've just spoke about great Christmas songs.
Yeah.
What is the worst Christmas song that you've heard?
Okay, well, I'm going to ask Andy this. I mean, Derek, and what I'm going, before we finish on this wonderful thing here, I'll ask you lads as well. What's the worst one? Anyway, have you had time to write 5 down, 5 carols? Derek?
Well, certainly, I like Wild Shepherds, Watch Their Flocks by Night.
Yeah.
Silent Night just has to be in there, I think.
Okay.
Good King Wenceslas.
Yeah.
I like. And Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
Yeah.
That's 4. And Oh Little Town in Bethlehem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I quite like.
Yeah. Well, my favourites is Mark actually mentioned it is Gloria Rosanna in Ex Chelsea's. I had to say that, didn't I? And Latin like.
Yeah, got the accent.
Yeah, I got the accent completely and utterly right there. Could you imagine that? Anyway, I tell you what, it's been absolutely wonderful, Derek. And to come on and mention all these songs. So I'm going to ask before we finish, and I get right back to you. Going to ask Geds, what's the worst Christmas song you've ever heard?
Well, I was going to say Slade, but someone's already pitched that as his best. And I was going to say Blue Christmas by Elvis, but I think, do they know it's Christmas time? I was going to say that. I'm afraid I'll stick with that. Okay. I know you all like it. I just didn't like it.
What?
Andrew, give me mine, little donkey.
So he's mentioned Sue there.
I cannot believe I actually met someone who likes it.
Do you know what? He's mentioned, out of his 5 songs, Sue, Daddy, you, Ed, I'm sorry, and you, Mark. Anyway, what's your version?
I'm speechless after that. Little donkey. Mine's quite simple. Anything, absolutely anything by Cliff Richards.
Well, we'll agree.
But the worst one.
Okay, well, I'm going to agree with you there, because the worst Christmas song to me was, do you know the take on the Lord's Prayer? I thought it was dreadful.
The Millennium.
No, I don't know. No, it was the Our Father. Can you remember that, Derek?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's Our Father said across Old Lang Syne. That was actually my choice as well. For
well, there you go. An absolutely dreadful piece of singing. And, but that, then again, that's the one.
I must have blocked that completely out of my mind, because I can't remember.
Do you remember it? Can you remember it?
It's completely not there.
I can actually see him singing it. I can actually see him. It wasn't that Mistletoe Man, but it was just the Lord's Prayer.
No, that's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was the Lord's Prayer across Old Lang Syne.
Yeah, it was. That's right. It was Old Lang Syne, wasn't it? The tune to it. Absolutely, Derek. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thanks, I've really enjoyed it, mate.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, can you come back? Remember, you're doing. Is it Clarence Frogman Henry? No, it's not him, is it?
No, it's the Drifters.
The Drifters. Yeah. The Drifters, that's right.
They've got a really interesting background.
Excellent stuff. No, that's right, yeah, that's right. Because there's someone, and I'm trying to think, and I won't think, unfortunately, and I want you to do him the next time after that. But next month, we'll have you on, so all as I can say, and the lads will just say it as well, just have a great Christmas and a better New Year. That's from me.
And from me.
Yeah.
All the best, Derek. Cheers, mate.
And from me, all the best.
Have a great Christmas.
Thank you so much, Derek. Thank you. Bye.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'll see you next month.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
The best in 60s and 70s music, plus a little bit of history. Tune into Frank Carlyle every Monday at 8 p.m. here only on Mersey Radio.